Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Um, Today's Go Show is, as you've heard me say before, Nichiren wrote, or the collection of writings we have, still extant from Nichiren, that have been translated into many languages, contain letters of several different character. Um, Again, communication in 13th century Japan, not unlike anywhere else in the world, was not immediate, not like cell phones and emails and right. We think today about fax machine as being ancient tech. They didn't even have tech then, so the way they communicated people in general was through messengers. And if they had more lengthy information, they wanted those messengers to carry with them with less chance of distorted meaning and so forth. As a messenger traveling 500 miles may remember what they heard far differently when they go to express it to whoever the recipient is, so on and so forth. They wrote things down. And so by letters that they wouldn't put in a mailbox, they would hand to somebody and their entourage to take somewhere to be read by either an individual or a group, right? So this particular Gosho, this letter, was written to the monks of Seicho-Ji temple, meant to be read and spoken aloud to all of the retinues of that temple, the teachers, the monks, the abbot, so on and so forth, right? Because of the nature of this Go Show, I'm going to read from the background to give you a little bit of an idea. This was written in 1276 while Nichiren was living in Minobu. Most of the last few letters that I've shared with you have been written the year before. So now, as you know from those Gosho, those letters, Japan is going through invasion from Mongol, getting warnings of submitting to the Mongol Empire. So they have impending invasions to worry about. They've been dealing with internal strife, civil war, warring clans looking to not own, but to control all of Japan. So anyway, there's a lot of difficulty, a lot of stress on the population, a lot of trigger-happy samurais, everything you could imagine, right? Along with famine, these clans who despise the shake-up that Nichiren is agitating in the people as well as the government, are finding followers and taking their lands. So that's affecting food production, animal husbandry, all sorts of things. And that has a trickle-down effect on the population as well, right? So, as we've seen before, Nichiren writes letters to individual followers, and followers who he knows will gather groups and discuss doctrinal things of the Lotus Sutra, Nichiren's teachings, and so forth. So some letters are personal, some letters have some teaching aids in them, encouragement, and so forth. This letter, because it's written to the teaching institutions, the temple, and specifically this temple, I'll just read the background and you'll understand. This was addressed to the monks and the heads of Seicho-Ji on Mount Kiyosumi, the temple to which Nichiren had been sent as a child to study. When he was 12 years old, his family, Nichiren's family, had to make a choice as to whether he was going to train under his father to take over the fishmongering business, or to leave his family and go off to a Buddhist temple to be initiated in study. This was like going off to school or university to us today. They didn't have a lot of local learning. Was basically taking over the family's whole, not business, but their whole lifestyle. How do they subsist? How do they feed themselves? And in many cases others, how do they become merchants of their skills and so forth? Or go off to Buddhist or temples where they would be educated in the history, the language, the teachings, so on and so forth. Seicho-Ji was founded in 771 by a priest named Fushigi, who enshrined there an image of Bodhisattva space treasury that he had carved from an oak tree. Bodhisattva space treasury was believed to possess wisdom and good fortune as vast as the universe. Seicho-Ji, which belonged to the Tendai school, at first became a center for the study of the Lotus Sutra. Then it fell under the influence of the True Word school, which promoted esoteric rituals, mudras, mantras, so on and so forth, and later adopted Pure Land teachings, which relied on Amida Buddha, or Nembutsu. Nichiren Shonin was formally ordained at the age of 16 and later left the temple to visit the great centers of Buddhist learning so as to further his study of Buddhism. This was Nichiren's travel even into China to study. He'd be introduced to Tendai school, but then he more broadly studied, as Shakyamuni tells us, all of Buddhist teachings, right? Nichiren says in this letter that he had obtained a great jewel, quote unquote, meaning that he'd attained Buddha wisdom. So he, through all of his studies, had awakened to his Buddha nature. He then went to deepen his understanding of the sutras and other works in the Buddhist tradition. Eventually, in 1253, 20 years after he'd entered Seicho-Ji, he proclaimed the teaching of Namo Myoho Renge Kyo for the first time. So, this letter is not only written with scholarship toward the teachings, the Lotus Sutra specifically, but the foundation of his own awakening, right, at Seicho-Ji. So there's all kinds of importance to this Gosho with those ideas. So here we go. Let us congratulate each other on the coming of the new year. Since you paid me no visit last year, I've been worried that something unfortunate might have occurred. If you have a chance to call on me, would you borrow for me from the priest Isoko the treasure on the 10 stages of the mind, the precious key to the secret treasure, a comparison of exoteric and esoteric Buddhism, and the other commentaries of the True Word school. I need them in order to refute the True Word monks who have for some time been clamoring against me. So he's making this request from Seicho-Ji specifically because this is where he began his journey into Buddhist texts and learning, and because he also knows that this temple has fallen from Lotus Sutra and Tendai teachings to have been influenced and now promoting True Word doctrines and even Nembutsu doctrines, right? So he knows they haven't come to see him. They've probably been admonished not to see him. And it's kind of a bold statement. He says, well, give me your best, your most profound documents, True Word documents, Nembutsu documents. Bring them to me so I can study them and build my efficient arguments against basically your mentors, right? This is pretty bold. Bring with you also volumes 1 and 2 of Great Concentration and Insight, which are Tendai's teachings, right? I would also appreciate Tung Chun and the supplement to, quote, the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra, if they are available. That's kind of indicates that, some teachings, some documents end up going by the wayside because of changes of leadership, right? Borrow the collection of Tendai documents, which is owned by Kanchi Bo, the disciple of Enchi Bo. I have heard people say that he possesses not only that, but other relevant writings. Please borrow them as well, and tell him that I will return them as soon as possible. This year, the question of which Buddhist teachings are right and which are wrong will definitely be resolved. So he's determined more than ever now, after his many persecutions and exiles, now that he's living in pseudo-retirement in Minobu, he can dedicate himself solely to a refutation of these erroneous teachings. And he's asking for the relevant documents from Seicho-Ji, which actually puts those monks in a precarious position. But being monks, they have to honor this scholarly request. But yet the government officials are closely watching anyone who supports Nichiren in any way. So this is a rough one. Tell Jokenbo, he says, and Jijobo, and the other monks on my behalf, quote, Nichiren has often been on the verge of being killed. Twice he was exiled and once almost beheaded. This is not because of any worldly wrongs on his part. As a youth, he received great wisdom from the living Bodhisattva space treasury. In other words, his stint at Seicho-Ji. He prayed or meditated to the Bodhisattva to become the wisest person in Japan. The Bodhisattvas must have taken pity on him, for he presented him, the Bodhisattva, with a great jewel as brilliant as the morning star, which Nichiren tucked away in his right sleeve. This is theatrics around his awakening. Theatric verbiage. Thereafter, on pursuing the entire body of sutras, he was able to discern in essence the relative worth of the 8 schools as well as that of all the teachings. The True Word School, end quote. The True Word School, among others, attempts to destroy the Lotus Sutra. It is essential to refute the True Word teaching, so in preparation I first attacked the errors of the Zen and Nembutsu schools. I have good reason for my accusations. I will reserve discussion of the rights and wrongs of Buddhist schools in India and China for some other time. But as for Japan, all the people have discarded the correct teaching of the Lotus Sutra and are therefore, without exception, destined to fall into the evil paths. In other words, they're going to go right back to their samsaric attachments and delusions. This is because at each and every temple, the True Word School invariably exists side by side with the Lotus Sutra, just as a shadow follows the body. Thus, to the practice of the Lotus Sutra that accords with the law is added the 18 paths, part of True Word School, and to the practice of repentance is added one based on the Amida Sutra. And in conferring titles upon these monks of the Tendai school, the True Word procedure predominates, while that of the Lotus Sutra is relegated to a secondary position. In reality, the True Word Sutras belong to the provisional teachings preached before the Lotus Sutra, and are inferior even to the Flower Garland or the Wisdom Sutras. Yet Chikaku and Kobo were confused on this point and held the True Word Sutras were equal or even superior to the Lotus Sutra. The eye-opening ceremony for a newly made image of the Buddha is therefore conducted with the mudra of the world-honored one, Buddha Eye, and the mantra of the Buddha Mahavarachana. As a result, all the wooden and painted images of the Buddha in Japan have been rendered heartless and sightless, and in consequence have been possessed by the heavenly devil. bringing ruin upon their own worshippers. This is why the imperial court in Kyoto is about to perish. Now, the evil teaching of the True Word School has made its appearance in Kamakura and threatens to destroy all of Japan. The Zen and Pure Land schools also hold extremely perverted views. I knew that if I declared this, it would certainly cost me my life. Yet I was determined to requite the favor of Bodhisattva Space Treasury. With this in mind, on the 28th day of the 4th month in the 5th year of Kensho, 1253, I pointed out the errors of the various schools for the first time to a priest called Joinbo and to some of the people on the southern side of the image hall in Dozenbo's quarters at Seicho-Ji Temple in Tojo village of Awa province. During the more than 20 years since then, I have spoken out with unremitting zeal, and I have been either driven from my dwelling or exiled. In former days, Bodhisattvas never disparaging was beaten with staves. Now Nichiren must face the sword. You get the reference to the Lotus Sutra there, right? Bodhisattva never disparaging is a whole chapter in the Lotus Sutra about the trials of somebody holding up truth to people who don't want to hear it, basically. So Nichiren is in the same lot. All the people of Japan, he says, both wise and foolish, from the sovereign on down to the common people, say that the monk Nichiren is no match for the scholars, teachers, great teachers, and eminent monks of old. I waited for the right time to dispel their distrust of me. The time finally came when a great earthquake occurred in the Shoka era, followed by the appearance of a huge comet in the Bunen era. He makes reference to those two events quite a lot. Observing these, I made this prediction. Quote, our country will suffer two terrible disasters, internal strife and foreign invasion. The former will take place in Kamakura in the form of an internecine strife among the descendants of the acting administrator. The latter will come from any direction, but that from the west would be the most violent. This later will occur solely because all the Buddhist schools in Japan are incorrect, and Brahma and Chakra will therefore command other countries to attack us. So long as the country refuses to heed me, it will certainly be defeated, even if it has 100, 1,000, or even 10,000 generals as brave as Masakato, Sumitomo, Sadato, Toshihito, or Tamura. These are all great generals from the history of Japan. If these words of mine prove false, then the people are free to believe in the distorted views of the True Word, Nembutsu, and other schools. End quote. This is the prediction that I have made known far and wide, right? And it's happened. Above all, if the monks of Mount Kiyosumi treat me with less respect than they show their own parents or the three treasures, they will become wretched beggars in this life and will fall into the hell of incessant suffering in the next. I will explain why. The villainous Tojo Simon Kagenobu once hunted the deer and other animals kept by Seicho-Ji, and tried to force the monks in the various lodging temples to become Nembutsu believers. At that time, I pitted myself against Tojo and supported the lord of the manor. I composed a fervent oath that read, quote, if the two temples, Kiyosumi and Futama, should come into Tojo's possession, I will discard the Lotus Sutra. Then, end quote, then I tied it to the hand of the object of devotion to which I prayed continuously, or meditated continuously. Within a year, both temples had been freed from Tojo's grasp. Certainly, Bodhisattva Space Treasury will never forget this. So how can those monks who make light of me avoid being forsaken by the heavenly deities? Hearing me say this, the more foolish of you may think that I am invoking a curse upon you, but that is not so. I am warning you simply because it would be a pity if you should fall into the hell of incessant suffering after your death. Again, the teaching tools of the fear of death and a lifetime. And this, we have to attribute some of this confusion to Western translations, right? But I'll just leave that there. You can do your own research. I've talked about it plenty, about life being a moment-to-moment string of events that we see as a continuous thing, but are actually moment-to-moment, births and deaths, moment-to-moment of life. This is why we can turn on a dime and enter the hell of incessant suffering or awaken our Buddha nature. Let me say a few words about the lay nun, the wife of the Lord of the Manor. Being a woman and foolish, and he's speaking in the parlance of the time, when threatened by others, she must have thought that what they were saying was true. I pity her because, having forgotten her debt of gratitude, she will fall into the evil paths in her next existence. Despite that, however, she treated my parents with kindness, so I'm meditating that I may somehow be able to save her from that fate. The Lotus Sutra is none other than the scripture that reveals that Shakyamuni Buddha became a Buddha numberless major world system dust particles kalpas ago. This is the much lauded lifespan chapter of the Tathagata in the Lotus Sutra that Nichiren uses all the time as his fundamental basis for Myoho Renge Kyo. It also predicts that Shariputra and the other disciples will become Buddhas in the future, which, if you study the sutras, you'll learn that these characters in the Lotus Sutra, from the Dragon King's daughter and Devadatta and so forth, all permanently scarred people will never attain enlightenment for multiple kappas, lifetime after lifetime, right? They'll never achieve awakening. But in the Lotus Sutra, predicts their Buddhahood. Again, emphatically repeating this point that Buddhahood already exists, that it simply needs to be revealed, and no matter what our previous causes, our karma, that leads us to the point we are now in this moment-to-moment existence, with Myoho Renge Kyo, can in the next moment realize Buddhahood, realize Buddha nature, awaken in this life, because this is the only life, right? And so he's walking this contradiction with these leaders of Seicho-Ji as his Alma-mater and as his plea that this negativity is coming our way. Well, not his way, he's in Minobu, but to Kamakura from Kyoto. Those who do not believe the sutra will fall into the hell of incessant suffering. Not only did Shakyamuni himself declare all this, but many treasures Buddha also testified to its truth, and the Buddhas of the 10 directions extended their tongues by way of verification. Furthermore, the Lotus Sutra teaches that the votary of this sutra will receive the protection of the bodhisattvas who emerge from the earth, as numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds. That's us. The bodhisattvas Manjushri and perceiver of the world sounds, Brahma, Shakra, the deities of the sun and moon, and the 4 heavenly kings, and the 10 demon daughters. Thus, there is no way to attain Buddhahood, no other way to attain Buddhahood. Sorry. One of the most important sentences in all this, and I misspoke. Sorry. Thus, there is no other way to attain Buddhahood. It is in the true Lotus Sutra that the matters of the past and future are spoken of correctly. I've never seen Chukushi, nor do I know anything about the barbarians of the West, the Mongols. Yet, the prediction I made in light of the entire body of sutras concerning foreign invasion has already come true. Hence, when I say that you will fall into the hell of incessant suffering because of your ingratitude, how can my words prove false? You may be safe for the time being, but wait and see what happens later. All of Japan will be reduced to the same miserable state in which the islands of Iki and Tsushima now find themselves, under Mongol rule. When vast numbers of Mongol hordes close in on the province of Awa, those of you, monks, who cling to prejudiced views will cringe in terror and finally fall into the hell of incessant suffering, saying, quote, "Now I know that the priest Nichiren was right." What a pity. What a pity indeed. Nichiren, the 11th day of the first month. Now, this is an odd way of pleading with them for these documents that he needs in order to refute what he would say is the garbage that they are promulgating. But it is a very profound warning to priests or monks that he still holds dear as his alma mater, right? So the plea is all the more heartfelt and strong. And in a way, demonstrates to them the importance of them sending him these books, these documents, right? So because he wants to make this, how shall I say, a team effort, he's beseeching these monks of his alma mater to join him in supporting him somehow. They don't have to convert immediately. He wants them to, but just do this act. Make this cause of getting these documents to me so that I can be empowered with these sutras at my behest to write out my arguments, to finally put to rest this nonsense of the last centuries of misguided leadership. Right? He's eliciting their support. He puts at the end of this letter a PS, if you will. He says, "To the priests of Seicho-Ji in the province of Awa, this letter is to be read aloud by the priest Sado, or the monks Sado and Acharya Suke, before the statue of Bodhisattva Space Treasury, for all the priests of Seicho-Ji to hear." So he's not satisfied by merely getting these documents. He wants all the leadership and all the membership within the temple, all of the studying monks, the students, as well as the abbot and the leaders of the temple and their entire support system. He wants them all to hear this letter so he can enlist everyone's energy and support and knowledge that under no uncertain terms, Nichiren is going to put an end to this. And they will all benefit from it as his effort. So quite a powerful and compassionate effort. Sometimes it takes a well-constructed awakening, a call for action in order to awaken people's sleeping spirit, if you will. So that is this Go Show. And we did it all in one take, too, in less than half an hour. Amazing, for me. Anyway, as usual, these kinds of Go Show can raise many questions. I like that because that means that there are a lot of avenues of study that we can branch out from just this one letter to educate ourselves and deepen our practice in the process, right? These dang things dangling on my ears. Anyway, so I hope that you got something out of that. I don't see how you couldn't, but we'll all get either inspiration or insights of our own nature. So I'd like to hear what you have to say about it. Any questions you might have, or opinions, or maybe you read some other sutra or passage, not necessarily of Nichiren's, but of another sutra that you can see mirrors what you're hearing here, or maybe brings up questions. That's what the comments are for. Please use them. I love reading your comments. Sometimes I love them so much. I just hit a little heart so that you know that I not only read it, but that I'm very endeared to your thoughts. And if you bring something up that either requires a response or that I feel I can add to, I'll certainly reply to you. So I read all of them so far. So please do that. And in the meantime, keep your practice strong, take care of your health, and I'll see you in the next one. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Bye.